Welcome. What you're about to hear is not just a summary of a book. It is a map of how human behavior really works and how you can use that knowledge to completely transform your life. Not next year, not after some dramatic event, starting today, starting with the very next small thing you do. The book is called Atomic Habits, written by James Clear, and it has sold over 15 million copies worldwide. It has been translated into more than 50 languages. It has sat on bestseller lists for years. And the reason is simple. It works. Not because it is filled with motivational speeches or empty promises, but because it is built on science, psychology, and a very honest look at how change actually happens. Most people think change requires massive action. They think if you want a better life, you need to make a big decision, start a big program, and stay perfectly consistent. And when that doesn't happen, when they miss a day, slip back into old habits, or lose motivation, they blame themselves. They think they are weak. They think they don't have what it takes. James Clear wants you to know that is completely wrong. Change does not come from intensity, it comes from consistency. It does not come from big leaps, it comes from small steps repeated over time. And if you understand how habits actually form in your brain, in your environment, in your daily routine, you will stop fighting yourself and start working with yourself. This script walks through every major idea in Atomic Habits, chapter by chapter, concept by concept. We will cover the science of habit loops, the 4 laws of behavior change, the importance of identity, the role of environment, and how to make good habits automatic and bad habits invisible. By the time we are done, you will have a complete toolkit for changing anything about your life, your health, your productivity, your relationships, your mindset. So, let us begin. Part 1. The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. Chapter 1. The Aggregation of Marginal Gains. In 2003, a man named Dave Brailsford was hired as the performance director of Great Britain's professional cycling team. At that time, British cycling was a disaster by any measure. The team had won a single gold medal in its entire 100-year history. No British cyclist had ever won the Tour de France. Things were so bad that top bicycle manufacturers refused to sell their bikes to the team because they were afraid it would hurt their brand image. Dave Brailsford had a different philosophy. He called it the aggregation of marginal gains. His idea was simple. If you broke down everything that goes into riding a bike and improved each tiny element by just 1%, those small gains would add up to something extraordinary. So he and his team started looking at everything. They redesigned the bicycle seats to make them more comfortable. They rubbed alcohol on the tires for better grip. They had the riders wear electrically heated overshorts to maintain ideal muscle temperature. They tested different types of massage gel to find the one that helped muscles recover fastest. They even hired a surgeon to teach the riders how to wash their hands properly to reduce the chance of catching a cold. Each change was tiny, almost laughably small, but the results were not small at all. Just 5 years later, at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the British cycling team won 60% of all the gold medals available in cycling. 4 years after that, at the 2012 London Olympics, they shattered 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. And from 2012 to 2017, British cyclists won 5 Tour de France titles in 6 years. What Dave Brailsford proved is the principle that lies at the heart of atomic habits. Tiny changes, compounded over time, produce remarkable results. James Clear explains this with a simple thought experiment. If you get 1% better every day for a full year, you will end up 37 times better than where you started. That's not a typo. 1% better every single day equals 37 times better at the end of the year. Conversely, if you get 1% worse every day for a year, you will decline nearly to 0.
The math is extraordinary, but the practical implication is even more important. Your habits are not just actions you take, they are the compound interest of self-improvement. Every workout you do doesn't just make you slightly fitter today, it's making a tiny deposit into the account of your future self. Every book you read, every healthy meal you choose, every hour of sleep you prioritize, these are investments. And like financial investments, the real power is in the compounding. But here's the problem. Compounding is invisible in the short term. When you work out for the first week, you don't look different. When you study a foreign language for a month, you still can't have a fluent conversation. When you meditate for 2 weeks, your stress levels might not feel significantly different. And so most people give up. They think the system is not working. They abandon the small habit before it has time to compound. James Clear calls this the valley of disappointment. You put in the effort, but you don't see the results. Not yet. The results are being stored, accumulated, compounding beneath the surface. And then, at some point, what Clear calls the plateau of latent potential, everything breaks through. Suddenly, the language clicks. Suddenly, you see the muscle definition. Suddenly, people start commenting on how calm and focused you seem. Bamboo is a perfect metaphor. When you plant bamboo, it spends the first 5 years building its root system underground. To an observer above the surface, nothing appears to be happening. It looks like failure. But then when the roots are strong enough, the bamboo grows up to 90 feet in 6 weeks. Were you to give up on the bamboo in year 4, you would conclude it doesn't grow, but you would be wrong. You just hadn't waited long enough. The same is true of your habits. The results you want aren't missing, they're just underground, building their roots. This is the first and perhaps most fundamental insight of atomic habits. Forget about dramatic transformations. Stop looking for the one big change. Focus instead on getting 1% better consistently, day by day. That's how mountains are moved. That's how lives are changed.
Chapter 2. How your habits shape your identity and vice versa. Here's a question that might seem odd. When you are trying to build a new habit, who are you doing it for? Most people answer that question in terms of outcomes. They want to lose weight, so they start a diet. They want to read more, so they set a goal to finish 12 books this year. They want to get fit, so they sign up for a gym membership. James Clear argues that this approach, what he calls outcome-based habits, is fundamentally flawed. And understanding why is one of the most important shifts you can make. Think about 2 people who are both trying to quit smoking. Someone offers each of them a cigarette. The first person says, "No thank you, I'm trying to quit." The second person says, "No thank you, I'm not a smoker." Do you notice the difference? The first person still sees themselves as a smoker who is trying to resist. The second person has redefined who they are. They have adopted a new identity. This is what Clear calls identity-based habits, and it changes everything. There are 3 layers to any change. The outermost layer is outcomes, the results you want. The middle layer is processes, the things you do. And the innermost layer is identity, the beliefs you hold about yourself. Most people try to change from the outside in. They set a goal, adopt a strategy, and hope that somehow this reshapes who they are. But lasting change works from the inside out. When you start with identity, when you decide what kind of person you want to be, your habits become the way you prove that identity to yourself, moment by moment, decision by decision. Think of it this way. Every action you take is a vote for the kind of person you are becoming. When you work out, you cast a vote for the identity of someone who takes care of their body. When you sit down to write, even for just 5 minutes, you cast a vote for the identity of a writer. When you choose the salad, you cast a vote for the identity of someone who eats healthily. You do not need to win every vote. No one does. But if the majority of your votes are in favor of the person you want to become, that is who you will eventually be. This is also why motivation is overrated. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings come and go. Identity is a belief, and beliefs are structural. When your habits are tied to your identity, you do not have to feel motivated. You act because that is what someone like you does. A person who exercises regularly does not ask themselves every morning whether they feel like working out. They go because they are the kind of person who works out. A person who meditates does not wait until they feel peaceful to meditate. They meditate because that is part of who they are. James Clear emphasizes something important here. You do not start with the identity fully formed, you build it through evidence. Every small habit is a piece of evidence. Every time you follow through, even imperfectly, you are adding a data point that says, yes, I am this person. So the practical question becomes, what is the identity you want to build? Not the outcome you want, the identity. What kind of person do you want to be? And then ask, what is the smallest action that person would take today? You want to be a reader? Readers read every day. Even one page counts. It's a vote. You want to be a healthy person? Healthy people move their bodies. Even a 10-minute walk counts. It's a vote. You want to be creative? Creative people create every day. Even a bad sketch, a rough paragraph, a clunky line of code counts. It's a vote. Over time, the votes accumulate, and at some point, not all at once, but gradually, you stop trying to be that person. You simply are that person. This is perhaps the deepest insight in the entire book. The goal is not to have a habit. The goal is to become a person who naturally does that thing. Because that person does not need willpower. They do not need to fight themselves. They are not trying to change a behavior. They are living in alignment with who they already are. Chapter 3. How to build better habits in 4 simple steps. Now we get into the mechanics. How do habits actually work in the brain? And once we understand that, how do we use it? The science of habit formation traces back to research on the basal ganglia, a region deep in the brain associated with automatic behavior. When you repeat a behavior enough times in a consistent context, the brain begins to automate it. It creates a kind of neural shortcut so that the behavior becomes effortless. James Clear describes this as the habit loop, and it has 4 components: cue, craving, response, and reward. The cue is the trigger that initiates the behavior. It's a signal to your brain that a reward is coming. Your phone buzzes, that's a cue. You walk into the kitchen, that's a cue. You feel bored, that's a cue. You smell coffee, that's a cue. Cues are anything that predict a reward. The craving is the motivation behind the habit. It's not the habit itself you crave, it's the state change the habit produces. You don't crave checking your phone per se, you crave the entertainment or distraction you expect to find there. Without a craving, there's no motivation to act. The response is the actual habit you perform, the thought or action. Whether you respond or not depends on how much friction exists in the way. If the action is easy and clear, you respond. If it's hard or confusing, you might not. The reward is the end goal of every habit. It satisfies the craving and tells the brain, this worked, do it again. Rewards provide immediate satisfaction and information. If a behavior produces a pleasurable result, the brain notes it. If it does not, the brain eventually stops triggering that behavior. Together, cue, craving, response, and reward, these form a feedback loop. Your brain is constantly running this loop, scanning for cues, predicting rewards, choosing responses, and learning from outcomes. And here's the critical point. You can hack this loop. Once you understand each component, you can design habits more effectively by engineering each step. James Clear organizes this into what he calls the 4 laws of behavior change. Each law corresponds to one component of the habit loop. To build a good habit, make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying.
To break a bad habit, you invert each law. Make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, make it unsatisfying. The rest of the book unpacks each of these laws in extraordinary detail. Let's go through them one by one.
Part 2. The First Law. Make it obvious. Chapter 4. The Man Who Did Not Look Right. Before you can design better habits, you need to understand something surprising about your current habits. You are largely unaware of most of them. Think about how many decisions you make each day that are truly automatic. You wake up and reach for your phone. Do you think about that? You sit down at your desk and open your email. Was that a conscious choice? You walk through the kitchen and grab a handful of chips. Did you decide to do that? Most of our behavior operates below the level of conscious awareness. The brain runs habits on autopilot precisely to free up cognitive resources for more demanding tasks. This is efficient and usually helpful, but it also means we can be running bad habits for years without realizing it. This is why the first step to building better habits is not action, it is awareness. You cannot change what you cannot see. You need to bring your habits into conscious view before you can redesign them. James Clear offers a powerful exercise called the Habit Scorecard. You write out every behavior from your morning until your bedtime, everything. Wake up, turn off alarm, go to the bathroom, scroll your phone, make coffee, drink coffee while watching television, shower, get dressed, grab breakfast, check emails. And next to each behavior, you mark it with a plus sign if it is a good habit, a minus sign if it is a bad habit, or an equal sign if it is neutral. The goal of this exercise is not to judge yourself. It is simply to see what you are doing, to make the invisible visible. Many people are shocked when they do this. They discover patterns they never noticed, a mindless 30-minute phone scroll right after waking up, a habitual afternoon snack that has nothing to do with hunger, a reflexive tension they release only when they finally notice it. Once you can see your habits clearly, you can begin to work with them intentionally. Chapter 5. The Best Way to Start a New Habit. Research in psychology has identified something called implementation intentions, specific plans for when and where you will perform a behavior. Studies consistently show that people who write down exactly when and where they will do a new behavior are significantly more likely to follow through than those who merely intend to do it. The format James Clear recommends is simple. I will behavior at time in location. For example, I will meditate for 10 minutes at 7 a.m. in my bedroom. Or, I will write for 30 minutes at 8 a.m. at my desk. Or, I will go to the gym at 6 p.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This removes the ambiguity that kills most habits. You are not waiting for the right moment to feel inspired. You have pre-decided when and where the habit occurs. The decision is already made. All that remains is execution. But Clear introduces an even more powerful technique, habit stacking. The idea is to link a new habit to an existing one, using the existing habit as the cue for the new one. The formula is after I, behavior, I will, new habit. For example, after I pour my morning coffee, I will meditate for 2 minutes. Or, after I sit down at my desk, I will review my task list. Or, after I brush my teeth at night, I will read for 15 minutes. The power of habit stacking comes from the neural pathways that already exist. Your existing habits have strong, well-worn cues. When you attach a new habit to an existing one, you are borrowing those cues. The existing habit serves as the trigger, making it far more likely that you will remember and follow through on the new behavior. Over time, you can create entire habit chains where each link flows into the next. Morning coffee triggers meditation, which triggers writing, which triggers a healthy breakfast. Each link strengthens the next. The key is always to be specific. Vague intentions fail.
Specific plans succeed. Chapter 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment often matters more. Anne Thorndike, a primary care physician at Massachusetts General Hospital, made a remarkable discovery through a simple experiment. She and her colleagues wanted to improve the eating habits of hospital staff and visitors without changing the cafeteria menu or making any announcements. What did they do? They simply rearranged the drinks in the cafeteria. Instead of keeping water bottles only in the drink stations, they placed water in refrigerators throughout the cafeteria, next to the food counters, at the checkout lanes, at every visible point. Simultaneously, they placed soda in the drink stations only. Over the next 3 months, sales of soda dropped by 11%. Sales of water increased by 25%. Nothing changed on the menu. No one gave a health talk. Simply changing what was visible and accessible changed what people chose. This is the principle James Clear calls environment design, and it is one of the most powerful tools in the habits toolkit. We like to think of ourselves as rational agents making deliberate choices, but research consistently shows that our behavior is heavily influenced by the environment around us. We are incredibly responsive to visual cues. What we see, we eat. What is in front of us, we use. What is placed conveniently, we do. Think about your own environment. If your guitar is in a case in the closet, you will play it rarely. If it is on a stand in the living room, you will play it often. If your running shoes are by the front door, you will go for runs more. If they are buried in your closet, you will go less. James Clear gives specific advice. To eat healthier, put fruit on the counter and hide junk food in hard-to-reach places. To read more, put a book on your pillow so you see it when you get into bed. To practice guitar, set it up in the living room where you can't miss it. To work more productively, designate your desk as a work-only space. And here's the good news. You don't have to be a passive recipient of your environment. You can design it. You can become the architect of your world, arranging things in ways that make good behaviors obvious and easy, and bad behaviors invisible and difficult. Chapter 7. The Secret to Self-Control. We live in a culture that celebrates willpower. The narrative goes, strong people resist temptation, weak people give in. If you cannot stick to your habits, it is because you lack discipline. James Clear systematically dismantles this story. Research shows that people who appear to have exceptional self-control often simply have fewer temptations in their lives. Studies of highly disciplined people consistently find one interesting pattern. They do not spend more time resisting bad habits than less disciplined people do. They spend less time, not because they have superhuman willpower, but because they have designed their lives in ways that expose them to fewer temptations. The person who never keeps chips in the house does not need willpower to resist eating chips. The person who leaves their phone in another room while working does not need willpower to resist checking it. Clear cites studies on heroin addiction in Vietnam War veterans as a striking illustration. When American soldiers returned from Vietnam, there were concerns about widespread addiction, since many had used heroin during the war. But studies found that 90% of veterans who had used heroin in Vietnam simply stopped after returning home. Not because they went through extensive rehabilitation, but because they had returned to a completely different environment, one with different cues, different social contexts, different stimuli. The environment that had triggered the habit was gone. This leads to a counterintuitive strategy. Instead of relying on self-control to resist bad habits, make the bad habits require more effort. Make them less visible. Remove the cues from your environment. Hide the cookies. Delete the social media apps from your phone. Put the television in a less prominent place. Put your phone out of the bedroom. You are not banning the behavior, you are simply removing the automatic trigger, and in many cases, that is enough. James Clear's conclusion on self-control is both liberating and practical. You do not need to be a person with extraordinary willpower. You need to be a person with a well-designed environment. Part 3. The Second Law. Make it attractive. Chapter 8. How to make a habit irresistible. Scientists discovered something remarkable through experiments on dopamine and anticipation. When a rat discovered that pressing a lever produced a food reward, dopamine levels spiked. But over time, as the rat learned the pattern, the dopamine spike shifted. Instead of surging when the food arrived, it surged when the rat saw the signal that food was coming. The brain's reward response was not triggered by the reward, it was triggered by the prediction of the reward. This is why anticipation feels so electric, why the day before a vacation is often as exciting as the vacation itself, why scrolling through social media feels compelling even if you rarely find something truly satisfying. It is the endless possibility of reward that keeps you scrolling. James Clear uses this insight to make temptation bundling a technique for making habits more attractive. The principle: link an action you want to do with an action you need to do. For example, you love watching Netflix, but you need to exercise. Solution: only allow yourself to watch Netflix while on the stationary bike. You love listening to your favorite podcast, but you need to process your inbox. Solution: only listen to the podcast while doing email. By bundling the attractive behavior with the habit you want to build, you transfer some of the craving and anticipation from the pleasurable activity to the habit. Eventually, the habit itself starts to feel more rewarding because it is associated with something enjoyable. This is not manipulation, it is smart psychology. You are working with your brain's reward system, not against it. Chapter 9. The Role of Family and Friends in Shaping Your Habits. One of the most underestimated influences on your habits is the people around you. We are social animals. Our sense of identity, our sense of normalcy, and our motivations are all profoundly shaped by the groups we belong to. James Clear points out that we tend to adopt the habits of 3 groups in particular. The first is the close, our family and friends. The people we spend the most time with are enormously influential. If your closest friends exercise regularly, you are more likely to exercise. If your partner eats healthy, you are more likely to eat healthy. The second is the many, our social group or tribe. The norms of whatever community we belong to act as invisible rules. If you join a running club, running becomes normal. If you join a book club, reading becomes normal. The third is the powerful, people with status and prestige. We mimic the behaviors of people we admire. This is why celebrity endorsements work, why we follow thought leaders, and why the habits of successful people are endlessly fascinating. The practical implication is clear. If you want to build a habit, join a community where that habit is the normal behavior. This is one of the most powerful things you can do. If you want to read more, join a book club. If you want to exercise, find a workout partner or join a group fitness class. If you want to learn programming, join an online community of developers. The identity shift that happens when you belong to a group of people who share your desired behavior is extraordinary. Clear also notes that belonging to a group where you already stand out as slightly behind the norm is particularly powerful. If you join a group of marathon runners and you have never run a race, you will feel motivated to close the gap. The group's standard becomes your aspiration. Relationships are not just emotional support systems, they are habit environments. Chapter 10. How to find and fix the causes of your bad habits. Every habit, good or bad, is an attempt to solve a problem. Behind every bad habit is an underlying motive, usually tied to a handful of basic human desires: to conserve energy, to obtain comfort, to find connection, to gain status, to reduce uncertainty, to achieve autonomy. You smoke because it reduces anxiety. You check your phone because it satisfies your need for stimulation or connection. You overeat because food provides comfort. You watch television because it offers relaxation from stress. These are not character flaws. These are normal human motivations. The habits are simply the strategies you have developed, often unconsciously, to meet those needs. James Clear argues that the key to changing bad habits is to find a better strategy for meeting the same underlying need. Instead of eliminating the desire, you redirect it. He also introduces the concept of reframing, changing how you think about habits by shifting the language around them. Instead of "I have to go to the gym," say "I get to go to the gym." Instead of "I need to cook dinner," say "I am choosing to build a body that feels energized." Instead of "I should stop eating junk food," "I am choosing to build a body that feels energized." This might seem like a minor linguistic trick, but language shapes perception deeply. Obligation feels like a burden. Opportunity feels energizing. When you start to genuinely associate a habit with its deeper benefit, the habit becomes more attractive. This also requires honest self-examination. What need does the bad habit meet? And is there a healthier way to meet that same need? If you stress eat, can you meet the comfort need with a walk, a warm bath, or a phone call with a friend? If you mindlessly scroll your phone for connection, can you meet that need by texting someone you care about? The behavior is the surface, the need is the root. To truly change, you need to go to the root.
Part 4. The Third Law. Make it easy. Chapter 11. Walk slowly, but never backward. There is a common mistake people make when trying to build habits. They confuse being in motion with taking action. Being in motion means you are planning, strategizing, researching, or preparing. Action means you are actually doing the behavior that will produce the result. Reading books about running is motion. Going for a run is action. Researching diet plans is motion. Cooking a healthy meal is action. Motion feels good because it involves zero risk of failure. If you are still planning, you cannot fail yet. But motion alone delivers nothing. James Clear makes a critical point based on neuroscience. Habits are formed by repetition, not by time. It is not how long you perform a behavior that makes it automatic. It is how many times you do it. Every time you perform a habit, the neural pathway associated with it becomes slightly more efficient. The brain begins to encode that behavior as automatic. But this only happens through actual repetition, not through thinking about it. This means the most important thing is to start, to get your repetitions in, even imperfectly, even for 30 seconds, even at low quality, because each repetition is building the wiring. Each repetition is making the habit more automatic. Clear references a story from a photography professor who divided his class into two groups. One group would be graded on the quantity of photos they produced. The other group would be graded solely on the quality of one single perfect photo. At the end of the semester, all the best photos came from the quantity group, because they had spent the semester taking photos, experimenting, failing, learning, and improving. The quality group had spent the semester theorizing. Repetition beats perfection. Starting beats planning. So how do you start? You make the habit as easy as possible. Chapter 12. The Law of Least Effort. Human beings follow the path of least resistance. This is not laziness, it is intelligence. Energy is a biological resource, and our brains are wired to conserve it. Given two options, we will naturally gravitate toward the one that requires less effort. Understanding this is a design principle. If you want to build good habits, make them require less effort. If you want to break bad habits, make them require more effort. The greater the friction associated with a habit, the less likely it is to happen. The smaller the friction, the more likely it is. This is why people watch television more than they read. Watching is passive and easy, while reading requires active engagement.
It is why people check their phones 100 times a day. The app is right there, one tap away. It is why people eat fast food. It is faster and more convenient than cooking. The solution is not to fight human nature. It is to work with it by redesigning the friction landscape. For good habits, reduce friction. Make the cue obvious, the behavior easy to initiate, and the path to doing it clear. For bad habits, increase friction. Add steps, reduce convenience, make the path to the behavior longer and harder. Clear calls this priming the environment, setting things up in advance so that doing the right thing tomorrow requires minimal effort. Practical examples: if you want to exercise in the morning, sleep in your workout clothes or at least set them out the night before. If you want to play guitar, keep it out of the case and in a visible place. If you want to eat healthy, meal prep on Sundays. If you want to journal, keep the journal and pen on your nightstand. For bad habits, if you want to stop watching television, unplug it after each use. If you want to use your phone less, log out of social media apps after each session. Studies show that even trivially small increases in friction can dramatically reduce behavior. Adding just a few seconds to the process can be enough to break the automatic cycle. Chapter 13: How to Stop Procrastinating by Using the 2-Minute Rule. James Clear introduces one of the most practically powerful ideas in the entire book, the 2-Minute Rule. The rule is simple. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. Read before bed each night becomes read 1 page. Run 3 miles becomes put on your running shoes. Study French for an hour becomes open your French textbook. Do a 30-minute yoga routine becomes roll out your yoga mat. The 2-minute rule is not a trick for tricking yourself. It is a strategy based on a real insight. Starting is the hardest part. Once you begin, momentum builds, friction drops. The behavior often extends far beyond 2 minutes naturally. But more important than the extension is the identity reinforcement. Every time you do the 2-minute version, you are casting a vote for the person you want to become. The size of the action matters less than the consistency of performing it. Clear also warns against scaling the habit up too quickly. Most people try to do too much too soon, burn out, and quit. The 2-minute rule ensures that the habit is established before it is scaled. A useful concept here is what Clear calls gateway habits, behaviors that seem trivial but naturally lead to more. Putting on your running shoes is a gateway to running. Rolling out your yoga mat is a gateway to yoga. Opening a book is a gateway to reading. You are not committing to the full behavior, you are committing to the gateway and then letting momentum take over. Never miss twice. If you miss once, that's an accident. If you miss twice, that's the beginning of a new habit, the habit of not doing the thing. The 2-minute rule is how you make sure you almost never miss twice.
Chapter 14: How to Make Good Habits Inevitable and Bad Habits Impossible. Beyond reducing friction in the moment, there is an even more powerful strategy: making the good behavior the default, the path of least resistance, by committing to it in advance. James Clear calls these commitment devices, choices made in the present that lock in better behavior in the future. The classic example is Odysseus from ancient Greek mythology. To resist the sirens, mythical creatures whose song was irresistible to sailors, Odysseus had his crew tie him to the mast of his ship. He knew he would not be able to resist their call in the moment, so he pre-committed to a course of action that would protect his future self. Modern examples of commitment devices: saving for retirement via automatic payroll deductions removes the choice of spending that money first. Signing up for a race forces you to train because the commitment is already made. Putting your phone in a lockbox at night makes it physically impossible to scroll. Pre-scheduling a workout with a trainer means canceling costs money, adding friction to not going. The key insight is this: Willpower in the moment is unreliable, but a pre-commitment made in a calm, rational state can protect your future self from your future impulsive self. You are not trying to be stronger, you are removing the decision entirely. This is the highest form of habit design, not just making the good habit easy, but making it automatic. Not just making the bad habit hard, but making it impossible. Part 5. The fourth law. Make it satisfying. Chapter 15. The cardinal rule of behavior change. We have covered making habits obvious, attractive, and easy, but all of that means nothing if the habit does not feel satisfying. Because what is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. This is the cardinal rule of behavior change. And here is the problem with most good habits. The rewards are delayed. You do not feel healthier after one workout. You do not look noticeably thinner after a week of healthy eating. You do not feel noticeably smarter after 1 hour of studying. The benefits of good habits accrue over months and years, not days. Meanwhile, bad habits often feel immediately rewarding. Eating junk food feels good right now. Checking your phone gives you a dopamine hit right now. Skipping the gym feels like relief right now. James Clear calls this the cost of good habits is in the present, the cost of bad habits is in the future. And our brains, by default, are terrible at weighing future costs against present pleasures. This is why most habits fail. Not because they are not beneficial, but because the benefit is too far away to feel motivating. The solution: make good habits feel immediately satisfying. Add a reward at the end of the habit that you experience right now, today, in the moment. Practical examples: after your workout, drink a protein shake that you genuinely love. After your meditation session, sit and enjoy your morning coffee in peace. After a productive work session, take a guilt-free 30-minute break. After sticking to your budget, transfer $1 to a travel fund savings account and watch the number go up. The reward does not have to be large, it just needs to be immediate. It needs to signal to your brain, that felt good, do it again. Close the reward loop immediately. Give yourself a reason to feel good right now, because right now is what your brain responds to. Chapter 16. How to stick with good habits every day. Nothing is more satisfying than progress, and nothing makes progress more visible than tracking it. Habit tracking comes in many forms. The simplest is a calendar or notebook where you mark an X each day that you complete a habit. After a few days, you have a chain of X marks, and your goal shifts. Do not break the chain. James Clear tells the story of Jerry Seinfeld, who described his method for developing his comedy writing. He had a yearly calendar on his wall. Every day he wrote jokes, he marked a big X on that date. After a few days, he had a chain. After a few weeks, the chain was motivating in itself. His goal was simply, do not break the chain. Habit tracking is powerful for several reasons. First, it creates a visual cue that reminds you to act. Seeing the chain on the calendar itself is a trigger to maintain the habit. Second, it makes your progress visible. Because so many benefits of good habits are invisible in the short term, tracking gives you evidence that something is happening. Third, it is immediately satisfying. Marking off a habit gives you a small but real sense of accomplishment. It's an immediate reward. Research backs this up. Studies have found that people who track their habits are more likely to follow through. People who track their diets eat less. People who track their workouts exercise more consistently. But James Clear warns against tracking in a way that distorts the habit itself. If you track pages read, you might start speed reading mindlessly just to hit the number. The habit is the goal. The tracking is just a tool to support it. He also addresses the inevitable fact: you will miss a day. Life happens, and when you do miss a day, the most important thing is never miss twice. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the beginning of a new pattern, the habit of not doing the habit. Get back on track as soon as possible. A bad workout is infinitely better than no workout. Chapter 17. How an accountability partner can change everything. There is one more powerful lever for making habits satisfying: accountability. We care enormously about what other people think of us. Social approval and social disapproval are among the most powerful motivators in human psychology. This is true even when we think we've outgrown peer pressure. The social wiring runs deep. James Clear recommends using this social instinct deliberately by creating accountability structures. The simplest version: find an accountability partner, someone who is working on a similar goal or who cares about your success and with whom you agree to check in regularly. When you know someone is watching, you are much more likely to show up. This works because failure, not just to yourself but to another person, becomes costly. You do not want the embarrassment of reporting that you skipped your habit again. The social cost of not following through is a powerful motivator. An even more powerful version is what Clear calls a habit contract, a written agreement between you and another person that specifies what you will do, at what frequency, and what the consequence will be if you do not. The consequence should be immediate and somewhat painful, not damaging, but enough to make failure costly. For example, I will exercise 5 days a week. If I miss more than 2 sessions in any week without a valid reason, I will pay my accountability partner $50. Studies show that these kinds of commitment contracts with financial stakes dramatically increase follow-through. The financial penalty is real, but perhaps more powerful is the social accountability, the fact that someone is watching and knows if you kept your word. The bottom line: humans are social creatures. Leverage that. Make your habits social. Your biology will do the rest.
Part 6. Advanced Tactics. How to Go from Good to Great. Chapter 18. The Truth About Talent, When Genetics Matter and When They Don't. James Clear does not shy away from the role of genetics. He acknowledges that genetics are real and that they influence your natural predispositions. Some people are wired for endurance exercise, others for strength. Some are naturally oriented towards social activity, others towards solitary work. But genetics do not determine destiny. They determine the playing field. And within that playing field, you still have enormous range. The key question is not, what do I want? It is, what comes naturally to me that also aligns with what I want to build? Clear introduces the concept of the explore and exploit trade-off from economics. Early in any endeavor, you should explore broadly, try different things, experiment, see what resonates. As you gather data about yourself, you shift toward exploiting what you have learned, doubling down on what works. He also offers a powerful reframe for finding your natural fit. What feels like play to you but feels like work to others? When you are working on something that aligns with your natural strengths and curiosity, it does not feel like grinding. It feels engaging, even when it is challenging. If you find yourself naturally staying late to work on something, thinking about it in your free time, and feeling energized rather than depleted by it, you have likely found a domain where your nature is working for you rather than against you. Habits built in areas of natural alignment are easier to maintain and tend to produce better results. The lesson is not to quit when things are hard. It is to check whether you are working with your nature or against it, and to be willing to redirect if necessary. Chapter 19. The Goldilocks Rule. How to Stay Motivated in Life and Work. James Clear identifies what he considers the greatest threat to long-term habit success, and it is not failure, it is boredom. Once a habit is established, it becomes easy, and once something is easy, it often becomes boring, and boredom is the enemy of consistency, because humans are wired to seek novelty and stimulation. We get used to things, we habituate, and habituation leads to reduced motivation, which leads to giving up. Clear introduces the Goldilocks rule to address this. Humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right at the edge of their current abilities, not too easy, not too hard, just right.
If a task is too easy, you get bored. If it is too hard, you get anxious and overwhelmed. But right at the edge of your ability, where you are challenged but not defeated, you enter a state of flow and deep engagement. This means that to maintain motivation over the long term, your habits need to evolve. As you get better, the tasks need to get harder. The runner who began by running a mile needs to eventually run 2 miles, then 5, then a half marathon to stay engaged. Progression keeps things interesting. Progression creates novelty within consistency. But Clear also addresses the other side. There will be times when following through on a habit is simply boring, and the mark of a professional is the ability to show up anyway, not because it is exciting today, but because they have committed to it. He distinguishes between amateurs and professionals with a simple observation. Amateurs give up when it stops being fun. Professionals show up even when it is not fun. The Goldilocks rule gives you a structure for making habits challenging enough to stay interesting, but even within that structure, there will be flat days, and on those days, consistency is the achievement. Chapter 20: The Downside of Creating Good Habits. Here's an unexpected caution that James Clear offers. Once a habit is fully automatic, it can become a liability. Habits free up mental resources by automating routine behaviors, but that automation can also cause you to stop thinking critically about the behavior. You do it on autopilot, and on autopilot, you can miss the moment when it stops serving you, or when you could be doing it better. This is why experts sometimes plateau at performance levels far below their potential. They have built habits around a skill, but they have stopped actively improving. The habit runs, but without awareness, without refinement. You need both. He recommends what he calls a habit review and reflection practice, regularly stepping back to examine your habits and asking, is this still serving me? Am I doing this the best way I can? What am I missing? The questions to ask are, what is going well in my habits? What behaviors produced the outcomes I wanted? What is not going well? What should I start doing that I'm not doing? And what should I stop doing that I'm still doing out of inertia? The habit review keeps you from becoming a prisoner of your own systems. It ensures that your habits evolve as you evolve, that you are not blindly following rules that no longer fit the person you are becoming. This is perhaps the most nuanced point in the book. Habits are tools. They serve your identity. They are not the identity itself. Stay aware, stay reflective, keep questioning, keep growing. Conclusion: the secret to results that last. We have traveled through the entire architecture of atomic habits. Let's pull it all together. Change is hard. Everyone knows this. Diets fail. Exercise routines get abandoned. Good intentions dissolve under the pressure of daily life. And the standard explanation is that people simply lack willpower or discipline. James Clear offers a completely different explanation and a completely different solution. People don't lack willpower, they lack systems. They lack environments designed for success. They lack identity alignment with the habits they want to build. They lack understanding of how habits actually work in the brain. The solution is not to try harder. The solution is to design smarter. Here's the complete framework. First, be aware. Use the habit scorecard to identify your current habits. Second, use implementation intentions. Write down exactly when and where you will perform your new habit. Third, use habit stacking. Attach new habits to existing ones. Fourth, design your environment. Make cues for good habits obvious. Remove cues for bad habits. Fifth, use temptation bundling. Link behaviors you want to do with behaviors you need to do. Sixth, join a community. Surround yourself with people who practice the habits you want to build. Seventh, use the 2-minute rule. Reduce new habits to 2 minutes or less. Eighth, make it satisfying. Add an immediate reward at the end of your habit. Track your habits. Never miss twice. Ninth, Find accountability. Use a partner, a contract, or a public commitment. 10th, reflect and review. Periodically step back and assess whether your habits are still serving you. And through all of this, the deepest principle remains. Focus on identity, not on the outcome you want, on the person you want to become, because your habits are how you become that person, one small action at a time. Every day, with every action, you are casting votes, votes for the kind of person you are, votes for the life you are building. The goal is not to hit a single massive target. The goal is to become the kind of person who naturally, automatically, habitually lives the life you want to live. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to get 1% better, consistently, over time. 1% better every day. That's the secret. That's atomic habits.
Applying atomic habits, health and fitness. Health is perhaps the area where most people most desperately want change, and where most people most consistently fail. Gym memberships peak in January and plummet by February. Diets last 2 weeks. Fitness challenges are abandoned after day 4. Why? Because most people approach health with outcome-based thinking. They focus on losing 30 pounds or running a marathon. These are distant goals. They feel motivating in the abstract, but provide no fuel for Tuesday morning when your alarm goes off and it is cold and your bed is warm. Let us rebuild the health habit stack using everything we have learned. Start with identity. Who do you want to be? Not what do you want to weigh, who do you want to be? Someone who moves their body every day. Someone who eats food that energizes them. Someone who prioritizes sleep because they understand its importance. That identity, held firmly, changes how you approach each daily decision. You are not resisting a donut, you are acting in accordance with who you are. Next, design your environment. If you want to exercise in the mornings, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Put your gym bag by the door. Remove every possible friction point between waking up and starting your workout. For nutrition, stock your kitchen with food that aligns with your goals. Keep cut vegetables at eye level in the fridge and hide the junk food in inconvenient locations. Use habit stacking. After you wake up, you drink a glass of water. After you drink water, you put on your workout clothes. After you put on your clothes, you begin your workout. Each step follows the previous one automatically. Use the 2-minute rule. You do not commit to a 1-hour workout every morning. You commit to putting on your shoes and stepping outside. On bad days, 5 minutes is enough. You are maintaining the identity, even if the output is small. Track your habits. Put a simple calendar on your fridge. Mark every day you moved your body. Watch the chain grow. Do not break the chain. And address the identity conflict. Many people unconsciously still see themselves as someone who does not like exercise. Every time you work out despite not feeling like it, you are adding evidence against the old identity. Over time, you become the person who exercises, not because you forced it, but because you proved it to yourself repeatedly. For sleep, make your bedroom a sleep-only environment. No phone in bed, blackout curtains, cool temperature. Set a consistent bedtime because your body responds to routine. Health is not one dramatic decision. It is thousands of tiny decisions, each one a vote for who you are becoming. Applying atomic habits for productivity and work. Productivity is perhaps the domain most clearly shaped by habits because so much of our daily work is repetitive. We sit down to our desks, check email, respond to messages, attend meetings, work on projects, and the quality of our habits around each of these activities determines everything. The first and perhaps most impactful strategy is environment design for focus. Your physical workspace is a cue machine. Everything in it is sending signals to your brain about what to do. If your phone is on your desk, it will distract you. If your desk is cluttered, your brain will find reasons to engage with the clutter. If your email tab is open, you will check it constantly. Design your workspace for deep work. Clear desk, except for the project you are working on. Phone in another room or on airplane mode. Email closed except during designated email checking periods. A deliberately designed environment communicates to your brain, this is where we work deeply. Time blocking is essentially habit stacking applied to a schedule. You designate specific time blocks for specific types of work. From 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., deep work only. Your most important project, no interruptions. From 11 to noon, email and communication. This works because you are creating predictable cues. When 8 a.m. arrives, your brain knows what's happening. There is no decision to make, no willpower required. The time itself is the cue. The 2-minute rule is essential for overcoming procrastination. The most procrastinated tasks are usually important but mentally demanding. The 2-minute rule says, just start. Open the document, write one sentence, just begin. The resistance almost always dissipates once you start. Tracking is transformative in the productivity domain. Using a simple system to track what you accomplished each day, what projects you moved forward, how many deep work hours you completed, provides both accountability and a sense of progress. And here's a nuance most productivity systems miss. Recovery is also a habit. High performance requires not just working hard, but recovering well. Scheduling genuine breaks is a habit that sustains productivity over months and years rather than burning you out in weeks. The identity frame for work productivity is powerful. See yourself as a professional. A professional shows up because that is what they do. Whatever your craft, a professional shows up, and they do so because that is the identity they have built. Applying atomic habits for learning and relationships. Learning is the most misunderstood of life's habits. Most people approach learning as if it's an event, a class they take, a book they read, a video they watch. But real learning is a daily practice. It's a habit. The most powerful learning habit is also the simplest. Commit to deliberate practice every day, even briefly. The word deliberate is important. Passive rereading or watching videos is low-quality learning. Deliberate practice means actively testing yourself, retrieving information from memory, applying concepts to new situations, and practicing at the edge of your ability, where you make mistakes and learn from them. Use the 2-minute rule for learning. Commit to opening the textbook, the language app, or starting the practice session. Do not commit to a 2-hour study session. Commit to 2 minutes. Then let momentum build. Use spaced repetition. Reviewing material at increasing intervals over time. Every day, review a small amount of material from recent days. This leverages the brain's natural memory consolidation and exploits the principle that we retain information better when we encounter it multiple times over time. For language learning specifically, one of the most commonly desired and most commonly abandoned habits, the key is daily exposure. Even 10 minutes of daily practice in a language produces dramatically better results than 2-hour sessions twice a week. Consistency beats intensity in learning, just as in fitness. The social habit. Join communities of learners. If you want to learn programming, join developer forums. If you want to learn a language, find a conversation partner. The social accountability and richness of dialogue accelerates learning enormously. And teach what you learn. The best way to solidify understanding is to explain it to someone else. Even if you're new to a subject, trying to explain what you have learned forces you to identify gaps and deepens your attention. And relationships are equally shaped by habits. The habit of attention, putting your phone away during conversations with people you care about. The habit of appreciation, telling someone something specific you appreciate about them each day. The habit of showing up, texting, calling, checking in consistently rather than relying on grand gestures occasionally. Relationships are maintained through consistent small actions over time. Rituals, a weekly dinner, a monthly friend gathering, are habits that relationships run on. They provide predictable, recurring cues that reinforce connection and belonging.
Key quotes and memorable lines from Atomic Habits.
These are some of the most powerful lines and ideas from Atomic Habits for use as reference, inspiration, or as overlay text in your video production. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. The most effective form of motivation is progress. When we get a signal that we are moving forward, we become more motivated to continue down that path. Success is the product of daily habits, not once-in-a-lifetime transformations. The goal is not to read a book. The goal is to become a reader. The goal is not to run a marathon. The goal is to become a runner. You don't have to be the victim of your environment. You can also be the architect of it. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. Motivation is often the result of action, not the cause of it. Changes that seem small and unimportant at first will compound into remarkable results if you're willing to stick with them for years. Every habit is initiated by a cue, and we are more likely to notice cues that stand out. If you want to master a habit, the key is to start with repetition, not perfection. Fall in love with the process rather than the product. The quality of our lives often depends on the quality of our habits. You should be far more concerned with your current trajectory than with your current results. Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior. Be the designer of your world and not merely the consumer of it. Outcomes are a lagging measure of your habits. Your net worth is a lagging measure of your financial habits. Your weight is a lagging measure of your eating habits. Your knowledge is a lagging measure of your learning habits. Your clutter is a lagging measure of your cleaning habits. You get what you repeat. The most powerful outcomes are delayed. The most powerful habits are small. These quotes capture the essence of the entire framework. Use them liberally in your video, as callouts, thumbnail text, or reflection moments during narration. Deep Dive: the neuroscience of habit formation. To truly understand why habits are so powerful and so persistent, we need to go deeper into the brain. Understanding the neuroscience of habits does not just satisfy intellectual curiosity, it gives you a profound strategic advantage when designing your own behavior change. The basal ganglia is a set of structures deep within the brain that plays a central role in habit formation. While the prefrontal cortex, the seat of conscious reasoning and decision-making, handles deliberate thought, the basal ganglia handles automatic behavior. When we learn a new skill or behavior, the prefrontal cortex is heavily involved. It is working hard, paying attention, making decisions, monitoring performance. But as the behavior is repeated, a process called chunking begins. The brain takes a sequence of individual actions and compresses them into a single automatic unit, a chunk. Once this chunking is complete, the basal ganglia takes over the routine execution of the behavior, and the prefrontal cortex can step back and focus elsewhere. This is why a skilled driver can navigate a familiar route while having an in-depth conversation. The driving has been chunked and handed off to the basal ganglia, freeing the prefrontal cortex for conversation. This is why a skilled pianist can play a complex piece while thinking about something else entirely. The behavior has become automatic. This chunking process is also why habits are so persistent. Once a habit is encoded in the basal ganglia, it is remarkably resistant to erasure. Even after years of not performing a behavior, the neural pattern remains. This is why recovered addicts often feel intense cravings years after quitting. The habit loop is not deleted, it is merely suppressed. Under the right conditions, the original cue appearing in the right context, the loop can reactivate. This insight has an important practical implication. You cannot delete a bad habit. You can only replace it. The loop, cue, routine, reward, must remain intact. What you can change is the routine.
If the cue is stress and the reward is relaxation, you can replace smoking with deep breathing or a brief walk, which also produces relaxation. The loop remains, but the harmful behavior is replaced with a beneficial one. Dopamine plays a critical role in this process. Dopamine is often called the pleasure chemical, but this is a mischaracterization. Its primary function is anticipation and motivation, not pleasure itself. When you anticipate a reward, when you see the cue that predicts something good, dopamine is released. This dopamine signal motivates you to act. Research using animals with impaired dopamine systems found something remarkable. These animals could still experience pleasure when they received rewards, but they had no motivation to seek those rewards. They would starve to death surrounded by food. Dopamine is not about pleasure, it is about drive. It is what makes you get up and pursue a reward. This is why habit designers focus so much on craving. If you can generate anticipation, if you can create a genuine craving for the reward that follows a good habit, you have harnessed the brain's dopamine system. The behavior becomes motivating, not just logically desirable. The amygdala, the brain's emotional processing center, also plays a key role in habits associated with strong emotional memories. Habits learned in emotionally charged situations are encoded with particular strength, which is why traumatic experiences can create powerful automatic responses that persist for years, and why habits formed in emotionally meaningful contexts tend to be more durable than habits formed in neutral contexts. This suggests a practical strategy. To strengthen a positive habit, create an emotionally resonant association with it. Connect your morning run to a sense of freedom and aliveness. Connect your journaling practice to a sense of clarity and peace. Connect your learning habit to genuine excitement and curiosity. The emotional charge strengthens the encoding. Sleep is the brain's habit consolidation period. During REM sleep, the brain replays and consolidates the day's learning and behavioral patterns. This is why sleep-deprived people struggle to form new habits. The consolidation process is disrupted. And it is why consistent and high-quality sleep is not just a health habit in itself, but a foundation for all other habit formation. Finally, the prefrontal cortex, the seat of executive function, willpower, and deliberate choice, is a limited resource. Studies on decision fatigue show that the quality of our decisions deteriorates as the day goes on and we make more choices. This is why successful people often simplify their routines, wearing the same style of clothes, eating the same breakfast, following the same morning routine, to preserve prefrontal resources for the decisions that truly matter. This has a direct application to habit design. Front-load your most important habits early in the day when your prefrontal cortex is at full capacity, and automate as many decisions as possible so that your cognitive resources are reserved for what matters most. The neuroscience of habits is not just fascinating, it's empowering, because it reveals something profound. Your brain is not working against you when you struggle with habits. It is working exactly as it was designed to. Understanding the design allows you to work with it rather than against it, and to design your behavior with the precision and intentionality that produces lasting change.
Deep dive, breaking bad habits completely. We have discussed how to build good habits at length. Now let us spend equal time on the other side of the equation, how to break bad habits that have been with you for years, perhaps decades. Bad habits are not a character flaw. They are a behavioral response that once served some purpose and has been encoded deeply through repetition. Breaking them requires understanding them, not just willpower. The first step is always identification and understanding. What is the cue for this habit? When do you perform it? What is the reward, the actual state change that you get from it? Most people are unclear on at least one of these elements, which is why their attempts to break the habit fail. They attack the behavior without understanding the loop. Use James Clear's pointing and calling technique for bad habits. Whenever you are about to engage in the habit, pause and say aloud what you are doing and why. I am about to check my phone because I am bored and I am hoping to feel entertained or connected.
This verbal articulation interrupts the automaticity of the habit and brings it into conscious awareness. Conscious behavior can be redirected. Automatic behavior cannot. The second step is to attack the cue. If you can prevent the cue from occurring, the habit loop never starts. This is why environment design is so powerful for breaking habits. If you want to stop smoking, do not go to places where you used to smoke. If you want to stop eating junk food, do not keep it in the house. If you want to stop checking your phone mindlessly, put it in a drawer when you get home. Remove or avoid the cue. The third step is to make the behavior harder. Even small increases in friction can dramatically reduce bad habits. If you want to stop binge-watching television, unplug it after every use. If you want to stop spending mindlessly online, delete your saved payment information from websites so you have to enter it manually each time. If you want to drink less, keep alcohol in an inconvenient location. Every additional step you add to the behavior gives you a moment of pause, a gap in which your prefrontal cortex can intervene and make a deliberate choice. The fourth step is to replace the routine. Remember, you cannot delete a habit, only replace it. Identify what reward the bad habit provides and find a healthier alternative that provides the same reward. If you stress eat, find a stress relief behavior you can substitute. If you drink to reduce anxiety, find an anxiety reduction practice that does not involve alcohol. If you scroll your phone for connection, find a way to get genuine human connection instead. The substitution must genuinely meet the same need, or the original habit will be too strong. The fifth step is to make the consequences of the bad habit visible and immediate. Bad habits persist partly because their negative consequences are distant and abstract. Smoking causes lung cancer, but that's decades away. Overspending leads to debt, but the credit card statement is next month. Our brains do not feel these distant consequences acutely enough to motivate behavior change. Create immediate consequences. Use a habit contract that includes a financial penalty for each instance of the bad habit. Track the behavior so you can see the pattern clearly. Sometimes just seeing how many times you actually check your phone in a day is motivation enough to change. Tell people about your commitment so that social accountability creates immediate social consequences for failure. Finally, have self-compassion for slips. Slipping back into a bad habit is not failure. It is information. It tells you something about your cues, your environment, or your underlying needs. Every slip is a chance to learn something about the loop. What was the cue? What was the reward you were seeking? What can you adjust? The person who never slips rarely learns as much as the person who slips, reflects carefully, and adjusts. Slipping once is an accident. Responding to the slip with self-understanding and quick return to the new habit is the difference between a temporary setback and a permanent relapse. Breaking bad habits is hard. It's supposed to be. The brain does not give up its loops easily. But with the right understanding and the right strategies, it is absolutely possible. Not through willpower alone, through intelligent design. Deep dive. Habit formation for different personality types. One insight that James Clear touches on but deserves deeper exploration is the fact that habit formation is not one size fits all. Different people have different psychological profiles, different strengths, and different vulnerabilities when it comes to building and maintaining habits. Understanding your own personality type can help you customize the Atomic Habits framework for maximum effectiveness. Gretchen Rubin identifies 4 personality types based on how people respond to inner and outer expectations. Understanding where you fall on this spectrum can dramatically improve your habit design. The first type is the upholder. Upholders readily meet both inner and outer expectations. They set a habit and they do it. They don't need much external accountability because their internal motivation is strong. For upholders, the Atomic Habits framework works almost exactly as written. The main risk for upholders is rigidity. They can become so focused on following their systems that they struggle to adapt when circumstances change. For upholders, building flexibility into systems, planning for disruption, having a bad day version of every habit is key. The second type is the questioner.
Questioners will only follow a habit if they understand and believe in the reason for it. They resist arbitrary rules and external expectations, but will meet their own internal expectations if they have a compelling reason. For questioners, the identity and science behind each habit is critical. Before building a habit, a questioner needs to deeply understand why it will work and why it matters. Once convinced, they are highly committed. The questioner's risk is spending so much time researching and questioning that they never begin. For questioners, setting a research deadline, I will spend 2 days learning about this, then I will start regardless of remaining questions, can break the paralysis. The third type is the obliger. Obligers readily meet outer expectations but struggle to meet inner ones. They will show up for their workout if they have a commitment to a workout partner, but they will skip it if they're exercising alone. They will maintain a habit if they are accountable to others, but they will often abandon self-set habits without that external support. For obligers, the accountability strategies are not just helpful, they are essential. An obliger without external accountability will struggle significantly, but with the right accountability structure, they can be incredibly consistent. Obligers should prioritize finding an accountability partner before starting any new habit. The fourth type is the rebel. Rebels resist both inner and outer expectations. They resist rules, including rules they have set for themselves. Telling a rebel to maintain a habit can actually make them less likely to do it. For rebels, the habit design is completely different. Instead of creating a structured routine, rebels need to connect their habits to their values and their sense of freedom and identity. Rather than, I will exercise every morning at 7 a.m., a rebel's approach might be, I am someone who moves my body because it makes me feel alive and powerful, and I choose when and how I do that. Rebels often thrive on spontaneity and variety within a general commitment. Beyond these four types, consider the role of introversion and extroversion in social habit strategies. For introverts, joining a large group fitness class or a loud social study group might be more draining than motivating. For extroverts, working in isolation might reduce motivation significantly. Introverts might thrive with a single trusted accountability partner. Extroverts might do better in a vibrant community setting. Consider also your relationship with perfectionism. High perfectionists often struggle with the 2-minute rule because they resist the idea of doing something poorly. They would rather not write at all than write badly. For perfectionists, the explicit reframe is critical. The 2-minute version is not the goal, it's the entrance. The goal is not a perfect product, it's the practice of showing up. A perfectionist needs to explicitly give themselves permission to do it badly, knowing that showing up matters more than performing perfectly. And consider your energy rhythms. Some people are morning people whose energy and focus peak early in the day. Others are night owls who do their best thinking and performing in the evening. Habit design should account for this reality. Schedule your most challenging habits for your peak energy window, whatever that is for you. The overarching principle is this: the science of habit formation is universal, but the application of that science should be deeply personalized. Experiment, observe, and adjust. What works beautifully for someone else may not work for you, not because you are flawed, but because you are different, and that difference is not a problem. It is designed information. Use it.
I want to close this complete exploration of atomic habits with something personal. A direct message, not to you as the person listening right now, but to the person you are in the process of becoming. You have just spent significant time with one of the most practically powerful ideas of our era, that small habits, done consistently, compound into remarkable lives, that identity shapes behavior more than motivation, that environment shapes behavior more than willpower, that systems beat goals, that 1% better every day equals 37 times better at the end of a year. You have heard all of this, and hearing is not enough. The gap between knowing and doing is the most expensive gap in human life. More people know how to be healthy than are healthy. More people know they should read more than actually read more. More people know they should save money, exercise regularly,
practice their skills, deepen their relationships, and most of them will not do those things despite knowing exactly what to do. The reason is not lack of information. It never was. The reason is lack of design. Your life right now is designed to produce the results you are currently getting. If those results are not what you want, the design needs to change. Not your willpower, not your character, your design. So here is the real challenge. Before you do anything else today, before you open another social media app, check your email, or start another task, take 5 minutes to answer these 3 questions in actual writing, in a notebook, on paper, somewhere real. Question 1. What is one habit, if I did it consistently for the next year, that would most improve my life? Just one. The most important one. Question 2. Who is the person I am becoming by doing that habit? Write the sentence, I am someone who. Question 3. What is the smallest possible version of that habit I can start today? Not this week, today. Write those answers down, and then, today, before the day ends, do the smallest possible version once. That's it. One decision, one action, 5 minutes of reflection, and 1 minute of behavior. Not because it will transform your life immediately, it will not, but because it is the first vote, the first brick, the first deposit into the account of your future self. The bamboo plant does not visibly grow for 5 years, and then it grows 90 feet in 6 weeks. You do not know how far along you are in your root-building phase. You do not know when the breakthrough will come, when the language will click, when the fitness will show, when the business will gain traction, when the skill will crystallize. The only thing you know is this. If you plant the seed today and water it consistently, the breakthrough will come. And if you do not plant it, if you listen to all of this, feel inspired for an hour, and do nothing, the breakthrough will never come. The bamboo cannot grow from a seed that was never planted. You are here because something in you knows that more is possible, that your life can be fuller, richer, more intentional, that you are capable of more than your current habits are producing. That knowing is important. Honor it. But knowing is only the beginning. The rest is in your hands, and it starts with one small action taken today. One habit, one vote, 1% better. This has been a complete video script and deep dive summary of Atomic Habits by James Clear. Over 20,000 words covering every major concept, every practical strategy, and every real-world application of this extraordinary framework. I hope you return to it again and again, whenever you lose momentum, whenever the compound interest feels too slow, whenever you forget why the small things matter so much. Because they do. They always did. They always will. Choose wisely. Start small, be consistent, trust the process. Go build something extraordinary. One of the most transformative applications of the Atomic Habits framework is the design of a deliberate morning routine. How you spend your first hour or 2 after waking sets the physiological and psychological tone for the entire day. Cognitive research consistently shows that the brain is at its most focused and creative in the early morning, before the accumulation of decisions, social interactions, and external stimuli has depleted the prefrontal cortex. Yet most people squander this golden window. They reach for their phone immediately, flooding their brain with social media, news, and notifications before they have even gotten out of bed. This immediately puts the brain in reactive mode, responding to other people's agendas rather than pursuing its own. The precious morning clarity is gone within minutes, replaced by the mental noise of the digital world. A well-designed morning routine habit stack can completely transform this. Here is a detailed example of how to build one using every principle from Atomic Habits. Step 1.
Begin the night before. The cue for your morning routine should be set up the evening before. This means placing your alarm clock across the room so you must stand up to turn it off. It means laying out your workout clothes, your journal, and your book. It means setting up your water bottle on the kitchen counter. The preparation the night before is what makes the morning routine automatic rather than effortful. Step 2. Design the first 5 minutes. The first 5 minutes after waking are the most critical. Your phone must not be in reach. Instead, the first action should be something that signals to your brain that today is purposeful. Many high performers begin with immediate hydration, drinking a full glass of water, which rehydrates the body after 8 hours without water, slightly raises body temperature, and activates the digestive system. This takes 30 seconds and cues the brain for the next step. Step 3. Build the stack. After drinking water, you make your bed. This takes 2 minutes, provides an immediate sense of accomplishment, the first win of the day, and signals to your brain that you are the kind of person who is organized and intentional. After making the bed, you go directly into a brief movement practice. This does not need to be a full workout, even 5 to 10 minutes of movement, stretching, push-ups, a brief walk, elevates cortisol to healthy morning levels, increases blood flow to the brain, and dramatically improves cognitive clarity for the next several hours. Step 4. Insert the anchor habits. After movement, you sit for meditation or a few minutes of quiet breathing. This is where the identity consolidation happens. In the silence before the day begins, you have a few minutes to remember who you are and what you are building. After meditation, you spend 5 minutes writing in a journal, simply noting what you are grateful for, what your intention for the day is, and one thing you are looking forward to. These practices are not mystical, they are neurological. They activate the default mode network in a productive way, consolidate the previous night's memory consolidation, and orient the prefrontal cortex toward what matters. After your morning physical and mental preparation practices, you enter your deep work window, the time reserved for your most important cognitive work. This should happen before email, before social media, before any external input. The morning brain is a gift. Use it for your most important work, not for email, not for social media, for the work that only you can do. This entire routine, hydration, making the bed, movement, meditation, journaling, deep work, takes 90 minutes if fully executed, or as few as 30 minutes in an abbreviated version. But it is not the duration that matters, it is the sequence. Each habit flows into the next. Each habit reinforces the identity of someone who is intentional, focused, and taking care of themselves. The key insight about morning routines is that they eliminate decision fatigue at the most important time of day. When you follow a routine, you do not have to decide what to do next. The sequence tells you. Your prefrontal cortex is fully available for the work that matters, rather than being exhausted by meta decisions about what to do and when. Design your morning routine deliberately. Write down the sequence, execute it consistently for 30 days, and watch how it transforms not just your mornings, but your entire day.
Detailed application, the evening wind-down habit stack. If the morning routine is about launching the day with intention, the evening wind-down routine is about closing the day with grace and preparing the brain and body for the deep restoration of sleep. Sleep is the single most important recovery activity available to humans. During sleep, particularly during deep slow-wave sleep and REM sleep, the brain consolidates memories, processes emotional experiences, clears metabolic waste products through the glymphatic system, and restores the neural resources depleted during the day. Every important cognitive and physical function depends on adequate, high-quality sleep. Yet most people's evening habits are actively hostile to good sleep. They stay on screens until moments before bed, exposing their eyes to blue light that suppresses melatonin production.
They eat heavy meals late in the evening, which elevates core body temperature and disrupts sleep architecture. They bring work stress or social media anxiety into bed, activating the sympathetic nervous system precisely when they need the parasympathetic system to take over. And then they wonder why they wake up feeling unrested. A deliberately designed evening wind-down routine, built on the principles of atomic habits, can transform sleep quality dramatically. The routine begins not at bedtime, but approximately 90 minutes before the desired sleep time. This 90-minute window is when you systematically prepare your brain and body for sleep. The first phase is closing out the day. This means reviewing what you accomplished, making a brief list of tomorrow's priorities, and transitioning mentally from work mode to rest mode. Many people find that writing down tomorrow's tasks in a tomorrow list before bed reduces pre-sleep anxiety about forgetting things, because the brain can release those open loops knowing they're captured. The second phase is eliminating blue light. 90 minutes before bed, all screens should ideally be off, or at minimum using a blue light filter. The photoreceptors in your retina are exquisitely sensitive to blue light, the type emitted by phones, tablets, and computer screens, and even brief exposure can delay melatonin production by 1 to 3 hours. Blue light blocking glasses can help if screen avoidance is not possible. The third phase is gentle physical and mental wind down. This might include a warm bath or shower, which paradoxically helps sleep by first raising and then rapidly lowering core body temperature, signaling to the brain that it is time for sleep. It might include light stretching, gentle yoga, or progressive muscle relaxation. It might include reading a physical book, not an e-book, in soft, warm light. These activities activate the parasympathetic nervous system and begin the neurological transition towards sleep. The fourth phase is the consistent sleep cue. This is perhaps the most powerful element, going to bed at the same time every night. The brain is extraordinarily responsive to circadian timing. When you go to bed at the same time consistently, your brain begins releasing melatonin and lowering body temperature in anticipation of sleep before you even lie down. Over weeks and months, sleep onset becomes faster and sleep quality deepens because the brain's internal clock has been trained to expect sleep at that time. The habit stack for the evening might look like this. At 9 p.m., I close my work laptop and write tomorrow's NIST. At 9:15, I take a shower. At 9:30, I read a physical book in bed with a dim lamp. At 10 p.m., I turn off the light. Over time, each cue triggers the next automatically, and the entire sequence becomes a signal to your nervous system. It is time to rest. The identity component of the evening routine is equally important. Someone who values their health protects their sleep. Someone who values their performance the next day protects the preparation for that performance. When you see your evening routine as an act of self-respect and strategic intelligence, not as a rigid bedtime, it becomes much easier to maintain. Great sleep is perhaps the most underrated performance habit. Design your evening routine to protect it. Detailed application, building a reading habit that actually sticks. Of all the habits people say they want to build, reading is perhaps the most universally desired and most commonly abandoned. The reasons people give for not reading more are almost always the same: no time, too tired, prefer screens, hard to focus, forget to do it. And yet some people manage to read 50, 70, or even 100 books per year. What do they do differently? Almost without exception, they have designed a system rather than relying on motivation. Let us build that system using atomic habits. The first design decision is when and where. Reading requires sustained attention, which means it should happen during a window when your cognitive resources are adequate and competing distractions are minimized. The two best windows for most people are first thing in the morning, before the day's noise intrudes, and in the evening as part of a wind-down routine. Both contexts work. The key is consistency. Same time, same place, every day. The second design decision is the cue. You need a reliable, existing behavior to attach reading to. The most effective cues are: after I sit down with my morning coffee, I will read.
After I get into bed at night, I will read. After I eat lunch, I will read. The physical act of picking up your coffee, lying in bed, or finishing your meal becomes the trigger for opening your book. The third design decision is friction reduction. The book must be within reach of the reading location. If your book is in another room, you will often not go get it. Place it on your nightstand if you read at night. Place it next to your coffee machine if you read in the morning. Place it in your bag if you read on commutes. Zero friction between you and the book. The fourth design decision is the minimum viable version. Using the 2-minute rule, your reading habit starts with reading just one page. Not one chapter, not 30 minutes, one page. This is so easy that there is almost no resistance to starting. And once you start reading a good book, you will almost always read more than one page. But the commitment is one page. On the worst days, when you're exhausted, distracted, or simply not in the mood, you read one page and you maintain your identity as someone who reads every day. The fifth design decision is book selection. Here's a truth many people discover too late. The wrong book can kill your reading habit. If you're forcing yourself through a book that bores you, you're training your brain to associate reading with boredom. Give yourself permission to stop reading books that don't engage you. Life is too short and there are too many extraordinary books. Find books you can't put down, books that make you think, laugh, cry, or see the world differently. Passion for the book makes the habit effortless. The sixth design decision is quantity versus quality. Some people get so concerned with reading the right things that they read nothing. Others read so quickly, skimming, speed reading, that they retain nothing. The goal of a reading habit is not to accumulate a count of books read. It is to genuinely learn and grow from what you read. This means reading at a pace that allows comprehension, taking brief notes when something strikes you, and occasionally pausing to think about how a concept applies to your life. Track your reading in a simple system. A list of books you have read with a brief note about what you learned from each serves as both an accountability tracker and as an increasingly powerful personal library of knowledge that you can refer back to. The identity frame for reading: see yourself as a learner. See yourself as someone who is always growing, always curious, always consuming ideas that make you better. Every book you finish is evidence of that identity. Every day you read is a vote for the person who never stops learning. Reading is one of the highest return habits available. The compounding of knowledge, each idea building on the last, each book expanding your perspective, each insight making the next insight easier to absorb, is the intellectual equivalent of the financial compound interest James Clear describes at the start of Atomic Habits. Invest in it daily, even one page at a time.
Detailed application. Financial habits that build wealth automatically. Money is one of the most emotionally charged domains of human life, and one of the areas where atomic habits can have the most dramatic long-term impact. The difference between financial security and financial stress is rarely intelligence or income, it is habits. Specifically, the small, repeated financial decisions made every day, week, and month over the course of a lifetime. James Clear's framework applies to financial habits with extraordinary power. Let us work through the key financial habits using the 4 laws. The first and most foundational financial habit: automate savings before you can spend. This is the ultimate application of commitment devices. The moment your paycheck is deposited, an automatic transfer should move a predetermined percentage directly into savings or investment accounts. You never see the money. You never have the opportunity to spend it first. It is gone before your brain can generate a craving for it. This single habit, automated savings, compounded over 30 years, is the difference between financial freedom and financial dependence. Even small amounts matter enormously. A 25-year-old who saves $100 per month in a broad market index fund, earning average historical returns, will have approximately $300,000 by age 65. The same person who delays starting by just 10 years will have only about $100,000. The difference is compounding.
and compounding only works if the habit is running consistently. Make saving attractive by connecting it to vivid future identities. You are not just saving money, you are building the life you want. You are buying future freedom. You are creating options. Naming your savings accounts helps. Instead of Savings Account 1, call it Travel Fund or House Down Payment or Emergency Freedom. Every time you see the account name, you see the identity you are building toward. Make saving easy by eliminating decisions. The harder part of saving is often not the math, it is the decision-making. When you automate savings, you eliminate the daily decision of, should I save this money or spend it? The decision is already made. Automation is the ultimate friction reducer for financial habits. The spending side of financial habits is equally important. Track your spending, not obsessively, but consistently. Weekly, spend 5 minutes reviewing where your money went. This awareness, bringing the invisible visible, is the first law applied to finance. Most people are genuinely shocked when they see how much they spend on categories they barely think about: coffee, subscriptions, takeout, impulse purchases. Awareness alone often reduces wasteful spending by 20 to 30%. Create spending rules that eliminate decision fatigue in common situations. For example, I wait 48 hours before purchasing anything over $100 that was not planned. I review my subscriptions monthly and cancel anything I haven't used in 30 days. I meal prep on Sundays so I don't order takeout during the week. These rules, once established as habits, reduce the cognitive and emotional energy required for financial decisions and systematically redirect spending toward what actually matters to you. The identity frame for financial habits is particularly powerful. See yourself as someone who is building wealth, not as someone who is restricting themselves. There's an enormous psychological difference between "I can't afford that" and "that's not how I choose to spend my money." The first frames you as limited. The second frames you as empowered and intentional. Financial habits, like all habits, take time to compound into visible results. In the early months, the savings balance looks small, the investment returns seem trivial, the spending reductions feel like small sacrifices. But 3, 5, 10 years later, the compounding becomes unmistakable. The discipline to trust the process, to stay consistent when results are invisible, is the financial equivalent of the bamboo plants 5 years underground. Plant the financial seeds today. Water them consistently, and trust that the roots are growing even when you cannot see them.
Detailed application, building creative habits. Creativity is perhaps the most misunderstood of human capacities. We tend to think of it as a gift, something you either have or you do not. Some people are creative, most are not. The muse visits some people regularly and ignores others entirely. James Clear's framework reveals this to be fundamentally wrong. Creativity is not a gift. It is a practice, and like all practices, it is built through habits. The research on creativity consistently shows that creative output is less about innate genius and more about volume of work and consistent practice. The artists, writers, musicians, and innovators who produce the most creative work are almost universally the ones who show up every day, not just when inspired, not just when the muse visits, every day. Why? Because creativity is not a state that you wait for, it is a state that you enter through action. The act of creating, even badly, even imperfectly, even when you feel zero inspiration, generates neural activity that makes creative insight more likely. You prime the pump by starting. The water of inspiration flows only when you are already pumping. The first creative habit: show up every day, even briefly. If you are a writer, write every day, even one sentence. If you are a musician, practice every day, even one scale. If you are a designer, create every day, even one rough sketch. The 2-minute rule applied to creativity is particularly powerful because creative habits have unusually high resistance to starting. The inner critic, the fear of producing bad work, the comparison to others' finished products, these create enormous psychological friction.
The 2-minute rule bypasses all of it. You are not trying to produce great work today, you are just showing up. The second creative habit: consume great work in your domain. Creativity does not happen in a vacuum. It happens through exposure to ideas, techniques, aesthetics, and perspectives. Every great creator is also a voracious consumer. Writers read constantly. Musicians listen constantly. Designers study design constantly. This is not copying, it is cross-pollination. You expose your brain to a wide range of inputs, and your brain, during quiet moments, during sleep, during the idle seconds between thoughts, synthesizes those inputs into something new. Make creative consumption a daily habit. Read in your domain. Listen to podcasts. Study the work of masters. Visit galleries, concerts, performances. Fill the well, and the well will provide when you need to draw from it. The third creative habit: capture ideas immediately. One of the most common creative regrets is, I had this amazing idea and then I lost it. Ideas are ephemeral. They appear in the shower, during walks, in the half-awake state between sleep and waking. If you do not capture them immediately, they are gone. The habit is always have a capture system within reach. This might be a small notebook in your pocket, a voice memo app on your phone, or a dedicated notes application. The moment an interesting idea, image, phrase, or concept appears, capture it without judgment. You are not evaluating it, you are preserving it for later evaluation. The fourth creative habit: create in batches, then edit later. Many creative people are blocked because they try to create and evaluate simultaneously. They write a sentence and immediately judge it. They sketch a line and immediately criticize it. This is the enemy of creative flow. The creative and evaluative modes of the brain are different modes, and they interfere with each other when forced to operate simultaneously. The habit is, during creative time, create without judging. Write badly, sketch roughly, play imperfectly. Get the raw material out. Then, in a separate editing session, evaluate and refine. This separation dramatically increases both the volume and quality of creative output over time. The fifth creative habit: work in a dedicated creative space. Environment design applies as powerfully to creativity as to any other habit. If you always write at the same desk, at the same time, in the same conditions, your brain will begin to associate that context with creative work. You will find that sitting down in that space makes it easier to get into creative flow because your brain has been trained to enter that state in that context. The identity frame for creative habits is perhaps the most important of all. Do not wait until you feel like an artist, a writer, a musician, a creator to begin creating. Begin creating and the identity will follow. Every bad sketch is a vote for the identity of someone who creates. Every imperfect paragraph is a vote. Every rough melody is a vote. The identity is built from the evidence of showing up, not from the quality of the output. Creativity is not a gift you wait for, it is a discipline you practice. Build the habits, and the creative life will build itself around them. The Habit Environment Design Masterclass. We have discussed environment design throughout this script, but it deserves its own dedicated exploration. Because environment design, the deliberate arrangement of your physical and digital surroundings to support your desired behaviors, is perhaps the single most underutilized tool in the Habits Toolkit. Most people think of behavior change as an internal project. They try to change their thoughts, their motivation, their willpower, and they consistently fail because willpower is finite and motivation is unreliable. But the environment is external. You can design it once and let it do the work for you indefinitely. Let us go through a complete environment audit and redesign process. Start with your bedroom. The bedroom environment should have one function: sleep. But most bedrooms have become multi-purpose environments, workspaces, entertainment centers, scroll zones. This creates profound confusion in the brain. If you work in bed, your brain associates the bed with work, making it harder to sleep. If you watch television in bed, your brain associates the bed with entertainment, making it harder to relax. If you scroll your phone in bed, your brain associates the bed with stimulation, making it harder to wind down. The bedroom redesign: remove the television, charge your phone in another room, keep books and nothing else on your nightstand. If you must use your bedroom for work, establish a clear physical and temporal separation, a specific area at specific times, and stop completely at least 90 minutes before bed. The bedroom should be a sanctuary of sleep and rest. Next, your kitchen and dining area. The kitchen environment determines eating habits to an extraordinary degree. Research shows that the foods placed at eye level in the refrigerator, on the counter, and in easily accessible pantry locations are consumed far more than foods placed out of sight. This is simply the first law of behavior change: make the good habit obvious, applied to nutrition. The kitchen redesign: clear the counter of everything except fruit and healthy snacks. Put a large water pitcher or water bottle on the counter so it is the first thing you see when you enter the kitchen. Store junk food in opaque containers in inconvenient locations, the back of a high shelf, a separate pantry. Keep healthy meal prep supplies at the front of the refrigerator. Put a meal plan on the refrigerator door so the question, "What should I eat?" has an immediate, visible answer. Next, your desk and work area. The work environment determines the quality and depth of your cognitive work. If your desk is cluttered with irrelevant objects, your brain will find reasons to engage with them. If your phone is visible on your desk, you will check it compulsively. If your email tab is always open in your browser, you will be perpetually distracted. The desk redesign: clear absolutely everything from your desk except what you need for the current task. Keep your phone in a drawer or in another room during deep work sessions. Use a browser extension to block distracting websites during work hours. Create a work mode setup and a break mode setup. When you are in work mode, the environment signals focus. When you are in break mode, the environment signals rest. The physical rearrangement is itself a cue that shifts your mental mode. Next, your digital environment. In the modern world, the digital environment is as important and often more important than the physical one. Your phone's home screen is a cue machine. Every app icon is a habit trigger. The apps on your home screen are the ones you'll use most, regardless of whether they serve you. The digital redesign: move all social media apps off your home screen and into a folder several screens deep. Remove notification badges from all apps except genuinely urgent ones. Delete apps you use mindlessly and tell yourself you can access them through a browser if you truly want to. The added friction dramatically reduces usage. Set your phone to grayscale. Research shows this reduces mindless scrolling by making the screen less visually stimulating. Create phone-free zones in your home, the bedroom, the dining table, and anywhere you engage in meaningful conversation. Finally, your social environment. This is the most powerful and most overlooked environment. The people you spend time with are the most influential environment of all. Their habits, their norms, their standards, their conversations, all of these shape your behavior profoundly and often invisibly. Audit your social environment with honesty. Which relationships support the person you are trying to become? Which relationships pull you toward behaviors that contradict your goals? This does not mean abandoning friendships, but it does mean being intentional about how much time and energy you invest in different relationships, and about seeking out communities that share your aspirations. A complete environment audit, physical, digital, and social, applied thoughtfully using the principles of atomic habits, can produce dramatic behavioral change with minimal willpower. You are not trying harder, you are designing smarter. And in the long run, design beats determination every time.
Common mistakes in habit building and how to avoid them. In closing this extended exploration, let us address the most common mistakes people make when trying to build habits and how to avoid each one. Mistake number 1, starting too big. The most common mistake in habit building is trying to do too much too soon. Someone decides to run every morning and starts with a 5-mile run. They are sore, exhausted, and dread the next session. They miss 2 days, then 3. The habit is dead within 2 weeks. The solution is always the 2-minute rule. Start absurdly small. Build the identity and the consistency first. Scale the behavior after the habit is established. You have the rest of your life to build up to the full version. Starting small and staying consistent is infinitely more effective than starting big and burning out. Mistake number 2, changing too many habits at once. New Year's resolutions typically involve 5 to 10 simultaneous habit changes. Exercise every day, eat healthy, meditate, read, journal, call family, sleep 8 hours, drink less, save more, work on the side project. Within 3 weeks, all of it collapses under the cognitive and emotional weight of too much change. The solution? Focus on one habit at a time. The research is clear that habit formation requires focused attention. When you are trying to build multiple habits simultaneously, you divide your cognitive resources among all of them and fully establish none of them. Pick the one habit that would most improve your life. Build it until it is automatic. Then add the next one. Mistake number 3, relying on motivation. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings are unreliable. If you wait until you feel motivated to build a habit, you will spend most of your life waiting. The days when you least feel like doing the habit are often the days when doing it matters most, because those are the days when the identity is being forged in the fire of difficulty. The solution is to design your habits so that motivation is irrelevant. Environment design, implementation intentions, habit stacking, commitment devices, accountability partners. All of these reduce or eliminate the need for motivation by making the behavior automatic or costly to avoid. Mistake number 4, all or nothing thinking. Many people have a binary relationship with their habits. Either they follow them perfectly or they have failed. Miss one day and the whole habit feels ruined. Miss a week and they abandon the habit entirely. The solution is to understand that habits are not perfect streaks, they are patterns. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is a choice. The goal is not perfection. The goal is to miss as rarely as possible and to return to the habit as quickly as possible when you do miss. A 1-page journal entry on a bad day beats no journal entry. A 10-minute walk beats no walk. Done imperfectly is infinitely better than not done at all. Mistake number 5, neglecting identity. People build habits for outcomes. I want to lose weight, so I am going to start exercising. When the scale does not move in 2 weeks, the motivation for exercising evaporates. The behavior was never deeply rooted because it was rooted in an outcome that had not yet appeared, rather than in an identity that was already true. The solution is to invest in identity before outcome. The question is not, how do I get fit? The question is, who is the person I am becoming? What would someone like that do today? Every habit is an act of identity reinforcement. When you see it that way, the outcome becomes secondary. You are not exercising to lose weight. You are exercising because you are someone who moves their body, and you are becoming more fully that person every single day. Mistake number 6, not reviewing and adjusting. Many people build habits and then never revisit them. They continue to perform behaviors that stopped serving them months ago out of inertia. Or they do not notice when a habit is working so well that it is time to scale it up. The solution is the periodic habit review. Monthly, step back and assess what is working, what has become automatic, what needs adjustment, what new habit is it time to add. This meta-habit, the habit of reviewing your habits, is what keeps the entire system alive, responsive, and growing. Building good habits is not a one-time project. It is a lifelong practice of designing, executing, reviewing, and refining. The people who master this practice, who truly internalize the principles of atomic habits, do not just build a few better behaviors, they fundamentally transform the trajectory of their lives. And that transformation is available to anyone. not just to people with extraordinary willpower or exceptional circumstances, to anyone who is willing to start small, stay consistent, and trust the compounding. That is the promise of Atomic Habits, and it is a promise that keeps delivering. One small action, one vote, 1% at a time.
The philosophy behind Atomic Habits, a deeper reflection. Before we close, it is worth stepping back from the tactics and strategies to reflect on the deeper philosophy that underlies Atomic Habits. Because James Clear is not simply offering productivity tips, he is making a philosophical claim about how human life works, and it is a claim worth sitting with. The central philosophical claim is this: you are the sum of your habits. Not your intentions, not your desires, not your potential, your habits. What you do repeatedly, automatically, without thinking, is what you become, and what you become determines what is available to you in life. This is a profound responsibility. It means that every ordinary day matters. Every seemingly trivial decision, what you eat for breakfast, how you spend the first hour after waking, whether you exercise or skip it, whether you open a book or a social media app, whether you have a difficult conversation or avoid it, is not just a single choice. It is a data point in the ongoing story of who you are becoming. Most people live their lives as if ordinary days do not count, as if only the big moments matter. The promotions, the achievements, the dramatic decisions, the milestone events. The ordinary Tuesday in February where you wake up, make a mediocre choice about breakfast, skip the workout, scroll your phone for an hour, and drift through the workday, that Tuesday feels like it does not count, like it is just filler between the meaningful events of your life. James Clear is telling you that Tuesday is the game. That ordinary Tuesday in February is where your life is actually being built or eroded, not in the dramatic moments, in the completely unremarkable ones. This is simultaneously the most sobering and the most empowering message in the book. Sobering because it means you cannot coast through your ordinary days and expect an extraordinary life to emerge. Empowering because it means you do not have to wait for the perfect circumstances, the right timing, or the dramatic turning point. You can start building the life you want right now, on this completely ordinary day, with one small habit. The philosophical tradition of Stoicism, practiced by Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, emphasizes a similar idea. We do not control outcomes, but we fully control our responses to circumstances. We control our actions, and our actions, practiced consistently, shape our character, which shapes our destiny. James Clear is making this ancient philosophical insight practically actionable. Yes, you control your actions, but actions are hard to control through willpower alone. So design systems that make the right actions easy and automatic. Align your environment, your identity, and your habits with the person you want to become, and then trust the process. There's also something deeply democratic about this philosophy. The compound interest of habits does not favor the already advantaged. It does not require wealth, connections, education, or luck to start. It requires only the willingness to begin small and to show up consistently. Across history, many of the greatest human achievements have been built through exactly this kind of patient, consistent accumulation. One page written per day, one brick laid per day, one small improvement made per day, compounded over years into something extraordinary. You do not need to be extraordinary to begin. You need only to begin, and to begin again each day with the understanding that your ordinary actions are anything but ordinary. They are the compound interest of your life, quietly accruing toward a result you cannot yet see, but that is coming if you only stay faithful to the process. That is the philosophy of Atomic Habits. That is the invitation James Clear is extending,
and it is an invitation worth accepting. Starting today, starting now, starting with whatever small thing is within your reach in this very moment. 1% better every day. That is enough. That is everything.
Quick reference: the Complete Atomic Habits Framework. Use this quick reference as a daily reminder of the Complete Atomic Habits system. Print it, pin it above your desk, return to it whenever you feel stuck, unmotivated, or unsure of your next step. The 4 laws of behavior change, building good habits. Law 1, make it obvious. Use implementation intentions. Use habit stacking. Design your environment. Use the habit scorecard to identify existing patterns. Law 2, make it attractive. Use temptation bundling. Join a culture where your desired behavior is normal. Reframe your habits as opportunities rather than obligations. Law 3, make it easy. Reduce friction. Prime your environment. Use the 2-minute rule. Automate with commitment devices and technology. Law 4, make it satisfying. Use reinforcement. Give yourself an immediate reward. Make progress visible through tracking. Never miss twice. The 4 laws inverted, breaking bad habits. Inversion of Law 1, make it invisible. Reduce exposure to the cues that trigger bad habits. Remove them from your environment entirely where possible. Inversion of Law 2, make it unattractive. Reframe your mindset. Highlight the benefits of avoiding the bad habit. Surface the costs and downsides vividly. Law 3, make it difficult. Increase friction. Add steps between you and the bad habit. Use commitment devices to make it impossible. Law 4, make it unsatisfying. Get an accountability partner. Create a habit contract. Make the costs of the bad habit immediate and social. The identity loop. Decide the type of person you want to be. Prove it to yourself with small wins. Use your habits as votes for that identity. As identity strengthens, habits become effortless. The compounding reminder. 1% better every day equals 37 times better by year's end. 1% worse every day brings you nearly to 0. Your habits are the compound interest of your life. Invest wisely. Start small. Stay consistent. Trust the process. This is the Complete Atomic Habits system. Simple in principle, profound in practice, life-changing in application. The work begins now. A final word on patience and self-compassion. As you begin applying this framework, the single most important quality to cultivate is patience towards yourself. You will build habits and miss days. You will set intentions and fall short. You will have weeks where everything clicks and weeks where nothing does. This is not failure. This is the human experience of change. James Clear never promises that building habits is effortless or linear. He promises that if you understand how habits work and you design your environment and identity accordingly, change becomes more likely, more sustainable, and ultimately more natural. But the journey is still a journey. It still has setbacks. It still requires perseverance. The key practice when you stumble is this: do not catastrophize. Do not tell yourself the habit is ruined, that you lack discipline, that you will never change. Instead, simply ask, what can I learn from this? What cue triggered the bad behavior? What friction is still in the way of the good behavior? What identity belief needs to shift? Every stumble is data, every setback is information, and every single day, even the worst ones, contains at least one small opportunity to cast a vote for the person you want to be. Be gentle with yourself on the difficult days. Be honest with yourself about what needs to change in your systems, and be relentlessly consistent in returning to the path, no matter how many times you step off it. The path does not disappear because you stepped off it. It is always there, waiting for your next step. And that next step, however small, is always available to you, right now, in this moment, on whatever ordinary day you find yourself in. That is the promise of atomic habits. That is the work, and you are already on your way.